717 Credit Union. Business services designed to meet your daily needs. Commercial loans, business deposits, merchant and payroll services. 717 Credit Union. It's knowing you were treated right every time.
What a great day. What a great day. The President will be here in a moment. I normally would acknowledge him and welcome him to Ohio, and I will do that. To Senators Brown, Portman, members of Congress, state and local officials, and members of the Ohio State Legislature. We celebrate today a great victory for Ohio, but an even greater victory for our country. We have learned over the last few years that there are essential items, necessities, that we must make here in the United States of America. We can, we must, and we will make them here. To Pat Gelsinger, to Kayvon Christie, to the whole great Intel team, we know that we're entering into a long-term relationship with you. By choosing Ohio over 39 other locations across our country, think of that. You recognized and you put your faith in Ohio and in our people. On behalf of the people of the state of Ohio, let me say to you, we will not let you down. To my fellow Ohioans, this is an historic moment for the Buckeye State. By choosing Ohio, Intel has recognized what we have known all along, and that there is simply no better place to raise a family than Ohio. No better place to live. No better place to start or to grow a business. And no place that provides more opportunity than the state of Ohio. My fellow Ohioans, by choosing Ohio, Intel has placed its faith in you. They have placed their faith in our women and our men who are building these fabs right now. There is a children's book. It's titled, They Build the Dream. And to the men and women who are out there today and who will be here for years building, we say thank you. Thank you for building that dream. And to those who are the Intel suppliers and the suppliers of the suppliers and on, we thank you. You also are building that dream. Intel is placing their faith also in those who are teaching the next generation of Ohioans and those who are preparing them for the jobs of the future. Because for all our other assets, our greatest asset is our people. Ohioans are the heart of the new Silicon Heartland. Just think about it. Today at this moment in Ohio, today, right now in Ohio, there are young men, young women attending our 14 public universities and others in our 74 private liberal arts colleges and universities, studying mechanical or industrial engineering, other things, all of whom may one day work here at Intel or in some other great Ohio high-tech job. Just think of it. Today in Ohio, there are young men and women in our 23 great community colleges studying microelectronics or electronic engineering technology who will one day work here as manufacturing technicians. Think about it. Today in Ohio now, there are young men and women in our 50 career centers, high school career centers, studying the STEM disciplines, who will one day work here in a wide variety of occupations, from high-tech manufacturing and cybersecurity to also the skilled trades, electricians, pipe fitters, HVAC technicians, sheet metal workers, who will, in the future, be building the 3rd and 4th fabs, the 5th and 6th fabs, and the 7th and 8th fabs, and on and on. My fellow Ohioans, this is a great victory. This is a great victory, and it is just the beginning. In the days and months and years to come, there will be many more victories in Ohio because we are investing in and preparing our young people and our older people for the future. A future that is bright, a future that holds great promise, and a future where all Ohioans can live their American dream. It's a great day in Ohio. Let's celebrate today. It is a great day in Ohio. And the best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
Governor DeWine, who just spoke, Lieutenant Governor Houston, Senator Brown, Representatives Balderson and Beatty, and other House colleagues who are here, members of the Ohio House and Senate who provided important legislation for the incentive package, local officials, Dr. Johnson, economic development professionals, those professionals like JP and Kenny worked their heart out. But most importantly, today, congratulations to the people of the great state of Ohio. It is your victory. Today, as we acknowledge all the hard work that went into bringing Intel to Ohio, we also acknowledge the hard work before us that now begins as we begin to close America's competitiveness gap that has grown dangerously wide with regard to semiconductor manufacturing. I'm really proud that Ohioans will play an important role in closing this gap. Special thanks to CEO Pat Gelsinger and his Intel team for the confidence they have shown in the people of Ohio. Pat and I have had a lot of conversations in the last couple of years about what Ohio brings to the table. And I will tell you, as a Midwestern farm kid, he got it instinctively. He understood that our Midwestern values, hard work, resourcefulness, a legacy of manufacturing, and a willingness to embrace technology fit exactly what Intel needed. Incentives from the governor, the state legislature, and the local community didn't hurt. But honestly, every state had an incentive package. Ohio's pro-jobs, pro-business environment that Governor DeWine and the state legislature have nurtured helped. And the new federal infrastructure law was timely. But folks, none of this works without the skilled Ohio workforce that they need. Now it's up to all of us to earn the confidence that they have shown in Ohio, and we will. As will be said later today when we hear from Pat and the President, the passage of the Federal CHIPS Plus Act was also critical in making today a reality. I was honored to help lead that effort in the Senate. Each of my Senate and House colleagues here today played an important role. In this case, at least, Congress put partisanship aside and focused on how to close the growing gap in semiconductors and other technologies that will ultimately determine the fate of nations. Our dwindling U.S. semiconductor manufacturing is both an economic and national security concern. Not only has our share of global chip manufacturing capacity over the past 30 years fallen from nearly 40% to 12%, but semiconductors are more important than ever for everything from F-150s to F-35s. And 90% of high-end chips being made in Taiwan and China dramatically growing its capacity, the supply chain has become more vulnerable, putting at risk the American economy and our military advantage. If it works as intended, the CHIPS Science Act will be the catalyst to spur all kinds of record-breaking technological investments and innovations, not just chips, and not just here in New Albany, as important as it is, but around the country and across the state. Intel's announcement to build here has already caused suppliers to look at Ohio because of the semiconductors. So let's get to work. Like we did with the CHIPS Plus legislation, let's link arms across the aisle and at every level of government and the private sector to meet the need. Let's help the building trades ensure those 7,000 skilled construction workers are there. Let's help Intel ensure that 3,000 skilled employees that they need and thousands of additional workers at suppliers across this state and region are there with the skills they need. Let's pass the Bipartisan Jobs Act in the United States Congress to redirect federal resources to skills training. If we all continue to work shoulder to shoulder as we have, this investment has the potential to be transformational for Ohio and to help America continue to be at the forefront of technological innovation and thus continue to be that beacon of hope and opportunity for the rest of the world. Thank you and Godspeed.
Thank you. In January, when Secretary Raimondo and Senator Portman and I were flying to Columbus to announce this investment, I remember looking out the window of the plane at all the places that have long been ignored by Wall Street and passed over by corporate America and forgotten by our government. And I thought about how, from that day forward, we're going to change that. I remember turning to Rob and to the Secretary and saying, today we are burying the term Rust Belt. Ohioans know what's happened over the last 30, 40 years. Corporations searched the globe for cheap labor. First, they went to anti-union states, closing down plants in Mansfield and Cleveland and Akron and Circleville, and moved to anti-union states in the South. They lobbied for tax breaks and bad trade deals to move more manufacturing jobs overseas, always in search of lower wages. Wall Street rewarded them for it over and over and over again. America invented the semiconductor, as you know, yet today 90% of them are made overseas. Pat, all of you, that stops today. Today, with American investment, with Intel's investment in American production, American workers, with the CHIPS Act, with all the work we're doing with President Biden in the House and Senate, we're putting in place a new pro-American, pro-union industrial policy. The technology of the future won't just be developed in America. We're really good at that. We've done that for generations. It will be made in America, in the industrial heartland, in Ohio, all over this state, Central Ohio and going out from here, where we built the engines of progress for generations. In this state, we have the history, we have the talent, we have the ingenuity, and finally, we have a federal government that recognizes that. This is what so many of us have been working for our whole careers. Good paying jobs, American supply chain, work for thousands and thousands of building trades workers. You know, when you love this country, you fight for the people who make it work. And today we break ground on an investment in our greatest asset in our country, American workers. Thank you.
And as you think about this moment, you know, I just ask you, what aspect of your life is not becoming more digital? You know, every aspect of health, every aspect of social, every aspect of transportation, is becoming more digital, and everything digital runs on semiconductors. And our ability to work remotely through the pandemic was because of semiconductors, to stay connected with our families and friends, to have virtual schooling and healthcare through this period of time. Everything, semiconductors, and our national defense is becoming more acutely dependent on semiconductors. And do we want our national defense to have the most advanced semiconductors in the world? You bet we do. And do we want to be dependent on foreign sources for those? You bet we don't. And for our entire history, we at Intel have performed the majority of our R&D and manufacturing right here in the U.S. We are the only U.S. chip maker that does all the R&D, manufacturing leadership, technology development in the United States. And as we came to this period in our strategy, we put our chips on the table. Yeah, I like that joke too. And we did it. We put our chips on the table to help the U.S. regain its manufacturing heart, as well as unquestioned technology leadership. And our partnership in Ohio is off to a great start. And under Governor DeWine, Lieutenant Governor, we just feel, come on down. Ohio wants us. And it's just been an incredible relationship, and the great support we've seen from the Ohio delegation of political leaders, and Senator Portman and Brown. These have just been extraordinary partners for us. And I show up in D.C. and boy, we just go to work, together. And of course, Representatives Balderson and Beatty. Just thank you so much for the partnership. And this great state of Ohio has this tradition of manufacturing. You all like to build stuff. And that's exactly what we're going to do together. We are going to build the most advanced stuff in the world right here in Ohio. And we benefit from this long tradition. Essential industries, steel, engines, automobiles, chemicals, and more. And because of that manufacturing tradition and the strong technology capabilities of the local universities, this became an obvious choice. And back in January, Ohio Senator Brown, made that statement, the Rust Belt is dead and the Silicon Heartland begins. And I'll say, he was the one to kill the Rust Belt, but Silicon Heartland, that was my phrase. But this idea of the Silicon Heartland, right, an epicenter of leading edge technology, and Intel's factory right here will produce the most advanced process technologies in the world. And our customers, our foundry customers, some of them being here today, they need the best stuff for their products. Everything from high performance mobile, artificial intelligence, advanced computing, cloud, all of that will be a result of these factories behind us. Advanced packaging, reliable workforce, including, as you've seen today, the most advanced trades on the planet are required to build this facility. And I'll just say, we are thrilled for the response that we have seen across that spectrum. And I say, every aspect of highly trained technical workers, construction, we're going to get to work. And we only gave you half a day off for the groundbreaking, so don't screw around, get back to work. But it also is that pipeline of talent in science, engineering, mathematics, innovation, the imaginative, creative skills. And I like to say it's not just STEM, it's STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And the need for these skills in America is growing, and we're not keeping pace with that pipeline. And fewer U.S. students are choosing the sector of semiconductors and manufacturing engineering as a career choice. We need to change that. And we need to bring this workforce forward. And that's why you heard this morning from Christy Pambianchi, where we are committing our $50 million, the first $17.7 million committed in these first 8 partnerships with 80 participants. This is the first step, but it's just the first step. Because we are moving forward to build the next generation workforce and to harvest. And I want, as I say, I want every mother and grandmother in the state of Ohio to say, you don't need to go to the coast, come home and work right here. And, it's not, and it's not low-end workers, it's not medium, it's not the highest PhD, it's not construction workers, it's not the next generation, of math. And we had, Finn up here, the next CEO of Intel. It is all of them across the entire spectrum is what we need. And as someone who began my career, my family is here. My mom and dad went to school in a one-room 1st through 8th grade schoolhouse where my mom still lives today. She said, go to school. So I began I skipped my senior year of high school, got my associate's degree, and was hired as a young technician at Intel. I know what it feels like to go from the bottom upward. And that's the heart of Ohio. This idea of the community colleges, the most advanced universities, giving opportunity across that spectrum. And that's part of why I am so excited. And I was one state off, I was in Pennsylvania, sorry, right? And I always like to say that when you get to nowhere in Pennsylvania, we were just 5 more miles. Technology plays a critical role in building a digital future, a future that is equitable, prosperous, accessible, and inclusive for all. And this is why we are so excited about the things that we are going to do together here in Ohio. And when I first walked through the doors of the company, the company that put silicon into Silicon Valley, why has so much innovation happened in Silicon Valley? Right? It's Silicon Valley. And this is the company, Gordon Moore, Andy Grove, Bob Noyce, the companies, the trinity that started Silicon Valley. And today, we're the company that's going to put the silicon into the heartland, the Silicon Heartland. But today, this is also a testament to the power of public and private coming together. And we have been aggressive in lobbying, working with the administration, working with the congressional leaders in the House and in the Senate, at the state level as well. Why? Because it is that important for the nation. And I'll tell you, the passage of the CHIPS Act, the most seminal piece of industrial policy legislation from World War II, we all together deserve to celebrate this moment. And I just say thank you all for all who helped make this most critical legislation happen. And I just say, regardless of political affiliation, this is a proud moment where we reached across the aisle and we got something really important done. But I'll just say, we would not be here, right, without our political leaders. We would not be here without the president and his leadership, Secretary Raimondo, Secretary of Commerce, all of these working to bring this across the finish line. And of course, it was a bipartisan bill. How often do you hear that today? Senators Schumer and Cornyn, Representatives Matsui and McCall as the sponsors for the act. And we were thrilled that we, Intel, had a part to play in making that legislation happen. We are honored to be part of that role. In addition to the Ohio delegation, Eddie Bernice Johnson of Texas, Senator Maria Cantwell, others were just crucial in coming by, to make this legislation, happen. And, we have Representative Ro Khanna. Silicon Valley, that's Ro. He's Intel's congressman who's here today as well. And Ro, thank you for joining us. And it isn't just that Ro decided to come and join your party. He deeply believes that the power of technology needs to be across the nation and not just in Silicon Valley. And I thank you for that, Ro. And with that, it is my honor, an honor that a farm kid from Pennsylvania should never even dream of, the honor to say the following words. It is my pleasure to introduce the President of the United States. Please join me in welcoming President Biden.
Thank you, Pat, for that introduction. And pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. It was just back in January when we were together at the White House with Senator Brown and Senator Portman announcing this historic investment. In March, I shared the story in my State of the Union address, the story of the Field of Dreams in the middle of Ohio, where America's future will be built. In August, we were back at the White House as I signed the CHIPS and Science Act, one of the most significant science and technology investments in our history. And now, in September, Gov, we're here breaking ground, and thanks for the passport to get to the state, Gov. Appreciate it. All in 9 months in America. I want to thank Sherrod Brown for his relentless work, especially making sure that labor is in on this deal. And Pat just mentioned what Sherrod makes clear. It's time to bury the label Rust Belt and call it, as Pat said, the Silicon Heartland. That's what's happening in these 1,000 acres. I want to thank Rob Portman for being the gentleman and decent man that he is, and for showing that Democrats and Republicans can work together to get big things done for our country. I really mean it. I'm trying to find where he's sitting, but he's a good man. Thank you. You're leaving a hell of a legacy as you leave what you're doing as a consequence of you, in large part. And thanks to the bipartisan group of Ohio congressional delegation here today. Tim Ryan, thank you for your leadership, always representing this to the working people. Thank you, Congressman Joyce Beatty. And, I don't think we could have gotten the infrastructure bill done without Joyce. She was the final capstone. I thought we all thought it was hanging in the balance there, but I don't know what you did that last 4 hours, but whatever you did, you got it done. And Dave Joyce, Anthony Gonzalez, Mike Carey, Tony Balderson for the work in the House. We're also joined by congressional leaders from around the country who fought so hard for this bill. Eddie Bernice Johnson, chair of the House Science Committee. Eddie, this whole bill wouldn't have gotten done without you. It really wouldn't have. We're also joined by Congressman Ro Kahana. Ro is a tireless champion for American innovation and seeing that workers are part of the deal. While she couldn't be here, Maria Cantwell also deserves a lot of credit. She's chair of the Senate Commerce Committee from the state of Washington. Maria was tireless in getting this bill through the Senate. And again, Mike, I want to thank you for your work on this project as well. And I especially want to thank the labor leaders here. My dear friend Lonnie Stevenson, the IBW, Tim Berger, the president of AFL-CIO, Brent Booker, treasurer of the National Building Trades, Mike Kinsley, president of Ohio Building Trades. You know, it's fitting to break ground for America's future here in Ohio. Think about it. There's kind of a tradition here. The Wright brothers, Neil Armstrong, John Glenn, they defined America's spirit, a spirit of daring and innovation. Pat Jace laid out Intel's vision that builds on that legacy. A brand new $20 billion campus, 7,000 construction jobs, union construction jobs, 3,000 full-time jobs that will pay an average of $135,000 a year, and not all of them will require a college degree once these facilities are built. And here's a critical piece. Intel is using a project labor agreement for this investment. For the folks at home, these are agreements that contractors, subcontractors, and union put in place before construction begins. They ensure major projects are handled by well-trained, well-prepared, highly skilled workers. They resolve disputes ahead of time, ensuring safer work sites, avoiding disruptions and work stoppages that can cause extensive delays and down the line. These agreements make sure construction is top-notch and projects are on time, on task, and on budget. Back in February, I signed an executive order to make sure federal construction projects use these project labor agreements. It's a big deal that Intel is using one here, and I thank them for that. And Intel is going to build a workforce of the future right here in Ohio. As you already heard, Intel committed $50 million to partner with community colleges and universities like Ohio State University, including Central State University, the only historically black university in Ohio. to build a pipeline for students in the semiconductor industry. The director of National Science Foundation is here, Dr. Ponch. He's here, and IF and Intel are going to invest $50 million each to support these kinds of partnerships. Folks, at home, you may be wondering, why is this such a big deal for manufacturing? Something so small in size as a fingerprint, as a semiconductor. Well, semiconductors are small computers that power everyday lives, smartphones, cars, washing machines, hospital equipment, internet, electric grid, and so much more, including our national security. And here's the deal. America invented this chip. America invented it. It powered NASA's moon mission. Federal investment helped bring down the cost of making these chips, creating a market and an entire industry. As a result, over 30 years ago, America had more than 30% of the global chip production. Then something happened. American manufacturing, the backbone of our economy, got hollowed out. Companies moved jobs overseas, especially from the industrial Midwest. And as a result, today we're down to producing barely 10% of the world's chips, despite leading in chip research and design. And as we saw during the pandemic, when factories that make these chips shut down, the global economy comes to a halt, driving up costs for families and everyone, not just here, but around the world. In fact, 1/3 of the core inflation last year was due to higher prices of automobiles because of the shortage of the semiconductors needed to build those automobiles. Folks, we need to make these chips right here in America to bring down everyday cost and create good jobs. Don't take my word for it. You heard Pat. Listen to the business leaders across this country. They're making decisions right now about where to invest and produce these chips. China, Japan, South Korea, European Union, all these places are investing tens of billions of dollars to attract chip manufacturers to their countries. But industry leaders are choosing us, the United States, because they see America is back and America is leading the way. Folks, since I took office, our economy has created nearly 10 million new jobs, more than 668,000 manufacturing jobs. Proof, a point that made in Ohio and made in America is no longer just a slogan. It's happening. It's a reality today, and it's just beginning. Because I signed into law the CHIPS and Science Act, we're accelerating the progress. This new law makes historic investments for companies to build advanced manufacturing facilities here in America. Since I signed the CHIPS and Science Act, it's already started happening. The American company Micron announced it's going to invest $40 billion in the next 10 years to build factories, special chips called memory chips that store information on your smartphones. That's going to create 40,000 good-paying jobs and increase America's share of the memory chip market 500%. Two other companies, Global Foundries and Qualcomm, announced a $4 billion partnership to produce chips in America that would otherwise have been made overseas. Qualcomm is one of the world's largest designers of chips and planning to boost production by up to 50% over the next 5 years. Today, in North Carolina, Wolfspeed is investing $5 billion to make chip devices for electric vehicles that are going to create 1,800 good-paying jobs over 5 years. Folks, the future of the chip industry is going to be made in America. Made in America. Folks at home should know the manufacturing of these semiconductors connects countless small businesses and manufacturers into a supply chain that's going to thrive, all because of this law. Imagine if we had more of these kinds of factories across the country. This law makes that a reality. It matters. All of this is in our economic interest, and it's in our national security interest as well. Earlier this year, I went to Lockheed's factory in Alabama. They're making the Javelin missile that we're supplying to Ukraine to defend itself against Putin's unprovoked war. We need semiconductors not only for those Javelin missiles, but also for the weapon systems of the future that are only going to be more reliant on computer chips. This goes well beyond commercial need. Unfortunately, we produce zero of these advanced chips in America. Zero. And China's trying to move way ahead of us in manufacturing now. It's no wonder, which is somewhat unusual, that the Chinese Communist Party actively lobbied U.S. business against this law. Basically, you want to do business in our country, don't do it there. The United States has to lead the world in producing these advanced chips, and this law makes sure that we will. And to be clear, the CHIPS and Science Act is not handing out blank checks to companies. I've directed my administration to be laser focused on the guardrails that will protect taxpayers' dollars. We'll make sure the companies partner with unions, community colleges, technical schools to offer training and apprenticeships, and to work with small and minority-owned businesses as well. We're going to make sure that companies that take taxpayers' dollars don't turn around and make investments in China to undermine our supply chain and national security. You know, we have the power. We have the power to take back any federal funding if companies don't meet these requirements. The law also requires that companies build these semiconductor facilities by Davis-Bacon prevailing wage, so people can live with a little bit of breathing room. And this will ensure tens of thousands of new construction jobs and high-paying jobs, and more often high-paying union jobs. And not only will companies use these funds to buy, but they cannot use these funds for stock buybacks and issue dividends. They have to manufacture. And finally, the law is about more than chips. It's about science as well. You know, decades ago, the United States of America invested 2% of its gross domestic product, 2%, in research and development. We led in everything. We created everything from internet to GPS. Today, we invest somewhere between 7/10, but less than 1% in research and development. The United States of America. We used to rank #1 in the world in research and development. Now we rank #9. China was #8 a decade ago. Now China's #2. And other countries are closing in fast. The CHIPS and Science Act moves us up once again. It authorizes funding to boost our research and development investment back closer to 1% of our GDP. That's the fastest single year of growth in 70 years, but it's still not enough. We're going to make sure we lead the world in industries of the future, from quantum computing to artificial intelligence to advanced biotechnology. Think of the things and the kinds of investment we deliver. Vaccines for cancer, cures for HIV, inventing the next best thing that hasn't even been imagined yet. That's who America's always been. There's something that's really important. We're going to make sure that any company that uses federal funding for research and development to invent new technologies will have to make that technology here in America. And that means we will invent it in America and make it in America. And we're going to make sure we include all of America. We're going to support entrepreneurs and technology hubs all across the country, including historically black colleges and universities, minority-serving institutions, tribal colleges. We're going to tap into the greatest competitive advantage we have, our diverse and talented workforce that's urban, rural, and suburban. Folks, I've asked Pat and many other leading leaders this question. When the United States decides to invest in considerable resources in a new industry that we need to build, does that encourage business to invest as well? And the answer is yes. Overwhelmingly, ask any major business person. Because they say if we think it's worth investing in, and we're putting tax dollars into it, it has an increased possibility of being usable or workable. Federal investments attracts private investment. It creates jobs. It creates industries. It demonstrates we're all in this together. And I believe there's another reason why companies are choosing the United States. It's because we're better positioned globally than we have ever been in a long, long time. We've seen a faster, stronger economic recovery than any other advanced nation on earth. I met with one of the leading companies, research companies in South Korea. I asked why they're going to invest billions of dollars in the United States. He said, because you're the most secure nation in the world. We know if we invest, it will be secure. And secondly, this surprised me, you have the best workforce in the world. Folks, and we have the best universities in the world. Dynamic venture capitalist system, a rule of law that protects international property. And thanks to the infrastructure law that I signed with the help of many of the members who are here today, that means better roads, bridges, ports, airports, clean water, high-speed internet for every American. That's going to create millions of jobs all by itself. This is a game changer. Let me close with this. This is about our economic security. It's about our national security. It's about good paying union jobs you can raise a family on, as my dad was saying, have a little bit of breathing room. Jobs now, jobs for the future, jobs in every part of the country. We're not going to leave a part behind. There's no need to not develop the whole country. Jobs that show the industrial Midwest is back. The industrial Midwest is back. And that's what you'll see in this field of dreams. PhD engineers in science alongside community college graduates, skilled craftsmen, men and women, people of all ages, races, and backgrounds with advanced degrees or no degrees, working side by side doing the most sophisticated manufacturing that's ever been done. Pat was explaining to me what these are going to look like. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, but I was impressed. You're going to dig down 60 feet, 10 football fields long. You're going to make that all cement. You're going to use that as basis to build on, because you need security, you need stability for what you have on top, and you're going to build up stories beyond. I mean, this is incredible. Making a tiny computer chip, the size of a fingertip. They're showing what we've always believed. And I want to emphasize this, and I'll get out of your hair. I mean this. You've heard me say this for a long time. There is nothing, I mean this from the bottom of my heart, there is nothing, not a single thing beyond our capacity as a nation if we do it together as the United States of America. And that's what we're going to do. This is an inflection point, everything. We're going to look back on this period 20 years from now and say that's when it began to change. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Pat, thank you.
717 Credit Union. Business services designed to meet your daily needs. Commercial loans, business deposits, merchant and payroll services. 717 Credit Union. It's knowing you were treated right every time.